Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Kelsey. I'm Kelsey Yogi here on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and I'm always helping you get on your hands and on your mat. So I know one of your most favorite things to do, or at least that's why you're here and you want to learn how to, is to do arm balances. I love arm balances, I love inversions. Those are my two favorite things to do. And I'm going to show you some of the very first ones that I did. So I have a different YouTube video called like beginner arm balances. There was a lot of confusion in the comments saying, this isn't beginner, this isn't a beginner posture. No. Arm balances are not beginner. They were beginner arm balances. You see what I'm saying? Any kind of arm balance, whether it's crow or elephant trunk or Bhujangasana, shoulder pressure pose, the ones I'm gonna do today, those are advanced postures. I would not have any beginner doing them, but for a beginner arm balancer, those are the ones to start with. I hope that clears up some of the confusion because I understand it's not a beginner posture. Beginner postures are Baddha Konasana, like butterfly pose, something that you can modify and you can hold regardless of your flexibility, or just, a pike stretch or Uttanasana, and you can modify that. An arm balance, you gotta be able to lift yourself up. It's tough. But I think that anybody can begin working these kinds of postures with a little strength, some flexibility as well, and then definitely some mental perseverance, because arm balances are tough as frick. People are always like, Kelsey, you're so strong. That's because I lift myself up, and I'm heavy, man. Everybody holding their own body weight, that's really tough. So I'm gonna teach you the ones that I started off with, and I think the very first one that I ever did was probably everybody's favorite, but it's crow pose, sometimes called Bakasana, which technically is crane. It's more of a kakasana. So that is crow pose, and it's when you're balancing your knees on your triceps. I've gone over this one. I have a couple of different videos really breaking this one down, but I'm gonna show you how I come into crow pose. The first thing that helps is a nice deep yoga squat. So that's when you have your knees and toes out, the hips have dropped, the heels are coming in, and you're really nice and low to the ground. The nice thing about this posture is it already sets you up for the proper positioning for crow pose. A lot of people like to put their legs on the outsides of their arm for crow, and while that's not necessarily wrong, it doesn't hurt your triceps as much. It's a lot more work. I like to stack the bones. Make that strong bone do some of the work, because the muscles are already gonna be crying and doing their very best. So when you come into this, get in that nice deep yoga squat. If your heels don't touch the ground like mine do, that's totally okay. That can be just, the structure of the bones in your ankles, and that's not something you're going to change, but it could be a mobility issue, and that's something that we can work on. But if the heels are up, don't worry about it. Maybe you just need your fingers down to help you stay balanced. So once you're in this nice deep squat, then bring your arms in front of your knees. Now I know this takes already a lot of compression, so if you're not there yet, that's okay. You're gonna work on the positioning first. But if you're here, you get your hands flat. Now we're gonna start to lift the butt. Okay, so we're gonna lift the butt, and then don't let the elbows flare out. I don't want your elbows to flare out because now you're already losing positioning. Think about having one of these yoga blocks between your elbows, and that's how wide they need to be. They don't need to be way out here. Draw the elbows in, okay? You don't have to squeeze the block. You could use a strap if you wanted to, but don't squeeze the block, just there for distance measurement. Start that shift forward. Knees are nice and high. So if they're right down here by your elbows, a bit more painful, a lot more work. Climb them as high as you can under the triceps, almost into the armpits, and then shift forward, shift forward. That's where things get kind of spooky. Maybe you want to put down a pillow from the couch or from your bed, a couch cushion. That kind of thing can give you just all of the comfort that you need, that if you smash your face, you're gonna be fine, okay? So some of this is just in your head. If you need some protection there, put it there. Hands down, press down at the heel of the hand, the base of the thumb and the index. The knees, or the knee is very high on the tricep, almost in the armpit if you can. And I'm gonna come up on my toes, that way the butt can go high. I'm gonna shift forward with the shoulders. Really start to grip the ground. Your fingers are your brakes, so use those to claw at your mat. Maybe you can lift one foot. Look right down behind, or right down on the mat. Don't lift the head, don't tuck the chin, but just keep a nice neutral position. Let's switch feet. Right foot down, lift the left. Keep that rounded upper back. You don't want to sink between the shoulder blades, but round. Okay? Take a little rest. And when you're feeling okay about it, see if you can lift both feet. Even if you just give them just a millimeter or two off the mat, that's your crow and it's flying. And don't worry about how high the feet get. Just get a little bit of air time and gain your confidence. The higher you lift your toes, then the more challenging it's going to be. So start with just a tiny little lift off. So again, shift forward. We have to shift, we have to start to grip. And see if maybe you can just float the toes a tiny little bit, tiny bit. That way if you fall, you're gonna fall back. You're not gonna fall forward. You're not even gonna need that pillow, okay? Another option that you can do if you're afraid, and I've had some people have great success with this, is to use those blocks, because then you already have a little lift through the feet and you can kind of play with just lifting them a little higher without, again, fear of falling forward. You could use 2 blocks if you want. So I'm already gonna kind of squat on my block, come into that crow position, shift forward, maybe lift 1 or 2. But because you might be afraid of falling forward, you can kind of just rest your toes on the block as you start to build strength. Now, if you're really feeling like you want to challenge that crow, don't use a cork block, use a foam block, and maybe play with lifting that block, okay? So crow is gonna take time because it's a lot of upper back strength, shoulder strength, forearm strength, core strength. All those things are gonna be a part of this. But as you develop your crow and you start to engage through the core, protract through the shoulder blades, push out of the shoulders, then all of a sudden your crow's really gonna start to fly and you're gonna be able to get more and more height. You'll be able to bring the toes, maybe even the heels together, and before you know it, you'll be jumping back all the way to your chaturanga, right out of your crow pose. Okay, so that was my very first posture when it came to arm balances. After that, I'm pretty sure the next one was called elephant trunk pose, and you will see why it's called that. So you have to have a decent level of flexibility for elephant trunk pose. Make sure that those hamstrings are nice and loosened up, the hips are warmed up. Maybe even do a little bit of pigeon pose first or a figure 4 shape to get those hips nice and warmed up. Because to come into elephant trunk pose, you have to have one leg hang over your arm. I'm going to demonstrate with my left leg. I'm going to take my leg, lift it with my left hand, and slide my shoulder underneath it. Okay? As you can see, it's not down here on my elbow, but way up here on my shoulder. The higher up my tricep I can get my leg, the better this posture is going to be. So you're gonna start here, get the leg all the way up there, hike it under there, and then start to grip the leg around the arm. So feel like you're squeezing the shoulder. Doesn't matter if you flex the foot or point the toe, that part doesn't matter. So I want you to bring your hands just forward of the hips. If they're way back here by the hips, you're not gonna lift. If they're way up front by the knee, you're not gonna lift. You want them just slightly forward of the hips, not so far that you're midway down the leg. Now shift forward, lean. Think about dragging the hips back and maybe get a little lift. Don't worry too much if the heel lifts off right away, but as you practice this posture, gotta rehang the leg. Not uncommon for the leg to continue to kind of drag down the arm, totally happens, especially to the guys I have noticed, because us gals, we tend to wear leggings in class. The legging gives us a little bit more grip and it drips up, it catches the drips of our sweat, so we don't get all that like lubricating of the skin with the sweat. Whereas the guys, they're in shorts or they have no shirt on at all, everything's super slippery. So you could consider putting a towel over your arm or putting some leggings or a long sleeve shirt on while you do these kinds of postures. It helps while you are still developing that core and shoulder strength. So leg nice and high over the shoulder. Start to hook it, grab on, hands are down. Try to square the chest forward and then start to lift up by dragging the hips back. Drag the hips back, and then maybe with time, the other leg lifts. You can flex or point, however you want to make your elephant trunk look. Now another way that you can use blocks with this one is to give yourself that height that you need. A lot of people are like, my arms are too short. It's not gonna happen. Your arms are too short. I promise your arms are not too short. You just haven't figured out the mechanics of how hard you have to push out of the shoulders, the rounding through the upper back that has to happen, and the pulling of the hips back. But using some blocks, and again, just forward of the hips, that's gonna give you that height that you need. So let's try it again with a pair of blocks. You can use foam blocks for this. I like my cork ones, they're a little bit more stable. Again, I'm gonna grip over the edge of them, point forward, push, and lift. And wow, look at that height. So much more hang time and height when you use blocks, but it is a bit of a trip up and down. So consider using blocks if you can't quite get off the ground when it comes to your elephant trunk pose. Make sure you do both sides, guys, because that is a unilateral posture, so you don't want to just work one side and not the other. Initially, you're going to feel best doing your most open hip, but I want you to do both sides. That way you gain that strength equally. And then the last one I'm going to show you guys is Bhujavasana, which is shoulder pressure pose. And this one looks kind of crazy, but as far as postures go, it's not too spooky, because if you fall, you're falling to your butt. So Bhujavasana is in the primary series of Ashtanga Yoga, and it's the first arm balance that we do. And so with Bhujavasana, what you're gonna do is I like to start in kind of a wider squat, and then I walk the shoulders back and under the legs. So I'm kind of climbing my shoulders underneath the knees. Bring the hands down flat, and then start to drop the butt. You see how I'm way high up on the arm, even almost to the shoulder? You don't want to be down here on the elbow. That's going to make it really hard. You need to be high on the arms. Hands are down flat. If this is already challenging, my teacher says to stand on your hands. So just take your feet and sit right on the heel of your hand, and this is a great place to start with Bhujavasana. But if you're feeling all right here, let's look for a little lift off. So again, high. Get those knees all the way over the triceps or even the shoulders. And we're just gonna play with just lifting one leg at a time. Again, you can see why this one wouldn't be too scared, because if you fall, you're just gonna go to your butt. You're not likely going to smash your face, although in the full posture of Bhujavasana, you do drop the chin all the way to the floor, so that can be a little bit spooky, but falling typically, you go to your bum. So, shoulders under, sit the butt down. So sit down and start working on lifting those legs, pointing the toes, and then once you're feeling pretty good there and both feet are lifted, then we cross the feet. Right over the left, point the toes, and then eventually, like I mentioned, you work on dropping the chin to the floor. And there you go, that's Bhujavasana. Again, you could use the blocks with this one, because that's going to give you a little bit of height. Let's see. The important part is getting those legs high on the shoulders. So this is a bit higher. You may be a little bit more spooked about falling forward rather than falling back, but if you need the height, you certainly get it when you use blocks. All right, there you go. 3 of my favorite, more beginner style arm balances. Again, arm balances are not for beginners, but somebody that's ready to start putting weight into their hands. Those are 3 great ones to play with. Really fun party tricks. And they're kind of nice to start adding to your practice, because you get a lot more confidence and strength being on your hands. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments what you want to learn more of next. I love teaching arm balances and inversions, so if there's one specifically that you want to know about, I'm happy to try to show it to you. Make sure that you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this on your social media. That's it for today, guys. Have an amazing day. Take care, and namaste.